Good afternoon to all. At the outset, I would like to thank Professor Deepak Malviya sir and whole organizing team of ISA Central Zone PG Assembly 2021, which is organized by Department of Anesthesiology and Critical Care Medicine of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Institute of Medical Sciences, Lucknow. The topic allotted is very important, that is management of hypo and hypernatremia. As we know that sodium disturbance in anesthesia practice during intensive care unit or post-operative complication if occur because of disturbance in sodium, that is managed by the clinician with a lot of background which foster the different institutional wise approach, and there is lack of evidence. It is because of paucity of prospective randomized control trial on protocol based management of hypo as well as hypernatremia. The timeline of my presentation: at first I will discuss hyponatremia, then I will discuss about the hypernatremia in the following subheading: introduction, definition, pathophysiology, and what will be the diagnostic and treatment approach in case of the hyponatremia and hypernatremia. So my whole presentation based on this clinical guideline on the diagnosis and treatment of hyponatremia, that is review article, the practical approach to hyponatremia and hypernatremia in the critical patients. So let's begin with the hyponatremia. As we know that hyponatremia is the most common disorder of body fluid and electrolyte balance, and 15 to 20% of the emergency admission occurs because of the hyponatremia in the electrolyte disturbance, and it is rather a disorder of water balance than the sodium balance. This serum sodium is determined by the amount of ECF water relative to ECF sodium. It is usually associated with a disturbance in the hormone, and that governs the water balance, and that hormone which is major culprit is the vasopressin. Now at first we have to see the physiology, how the water intake and hemostasis is regulated. So whenever any disturbance in the sodium concentration in the ECF, this homeostasis is disturbed, and that will stimulate the osmoreceptors. This will cause the increased ADH release and that causes the increased thirst, and because of this increased thirst there is increased water gain, and because of increased ADH release there is decreased urinary water loss. And finally, because of this physiological mechanism, there is additional water which dilutes the ECF, and finally the volume increased and the hemostasis restored with the normal sodium concentration in the ECF. So this hemostasis is maintained by the baroregulation pathway or osmoregulation pathway, and this baroregulation pathway has predominant role compared to the osmoregulation pathway. So whenever any decrease in blood volume, like in case of the diarrhea, because of that there decrease arterial receptors firing, and because of this there is stimulation of hypothalamus osmoreceptors which is present in the hypothalamus, which causes the release of this vasopressin, which is stored in the supraoptic nucleus and paraventricular nucleus, and because of that axonal transport this vasopressin secretion occurs, and finally this vasopressin acts on the blood vessels through the V1 receptors and causes the vasoconstriction, and ultimately it increases the SBR, and that will increases the blood pressure. In the another pathway, that is the osmoregulation pathway, because of the hyperosmolarity and angiotensin 2, this vasopressin secretion is secreted, and it will act on the collecting duct of the kidney through the aquaporin 2 water channel, and the receptors present there is V2 receptors, and it will cause the fluid reabsorption. Because of that there is increased blood volume and osmolality decreases. So these two pathway, one is the baroregulation and osmoregulation, both pathway will play and preserve the homeostasis of the patient. In physiological condition, the vasopressin secretion is regulated and that is released by the posterior pituitary gland. But in case of the pathological condition, both pituitary and other cells may also synthesize and secrete the vasopressin, and that is independent of serum osmolality and the circulating volume. So that leads to the serum inappropriate secretion of antidiuretic. So SIDH in the initial injury stimulates the neuron in the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus, and that leads to the abnormal oxytocin and vasopressin release, and because of that there is non-osmotic ADH hypersecretion, and that lead to the free water clearance inhibition leading to the water retention and extracellular volume expansion. That lead to the suppression of renal angiotensin system, and finally the natriuresis and restoration of euvolemia but worsening of the hyponatremia. So it will be diagnosed on the basis of diagnostic criteria which is given by the Barton and Schwartz, the essential and supplemental. The essential criteria is the effective serum sodium is less than 275 milliosmol per kg, urine osmolality is more than 100 milliosmol per kg, patient is clinically euvolemic, urine sodium concentration is more than 30 millimole per liter, there is absence of adrenal, thyroid, pituitary or renal insufficiency, and no recent use of diuretic agent. The supplemental criteria: uric acid is less than 4 mg per deciliter, serum urea is less than 21.6, failure to correct the hyponatremia after 0.9% NS, the fractional excretion of serum sodium is more than 0.5%, fractional excretion of urea is more than 55%, fractional excretion of uric acid is more than 12%, and correction of hyponatremia through the fluid restriction. Coming to the some basic concept, what is the osmolarity and osmolality? The osmolarity is the osmotic activity per volume of solution, and osmolality is the per volume of water. How can we measure the plasma osmolality? It is based on the standard method by measuring, that is the freezing point depression. How will you calculate the plasma osmolality? On the basis of this formula, 2 into the sodium into the glucose divided by 18 plus blood urea nitrogen divided by 2.8. Blood urea nitrogen will not part effectively, so the effective plasma osmolality is 2 into sodium plus glucose divided by 18 only, and normal serum osmolality is 275 to 295 milliosmol per kg of water. Now how will you measure the serum sodium? It is based on the measured by the flame photometry which is used in the laboratory, and when we'll take the serum in that condition, the 93% is the aqueous and only 7% is the solid phase. So if you want to take the less blood sample, then you have to add the some diluent here, and that will give the, after that we will measure the serum sodium level. So normally it is 154, but because of the use of diluent level, the normal serum sodium would be the in between the 135 to 145, but in the plasma, plasma of the human being, it is around the 154. When in case of the high concentration of the lipid, or in case of the high concentration of protein, this solid phase will increase. And if we add the same amount of diluent here also, because of that, the serum sodium which will we get is falsely low, and that is the pseudo hyponatremia. Because of we are giving the same amount of diluent, but solid concentration is high here, so it will give the falsely level of the serum sodium, that is the low serum sodium level, and it mainly seen in case of the hyperproteinemia or hyperlipidemia. So how to rule out this? You can do by doing the measurement of serum sodium by the specific electrode, ion specific electrode method, but it is also sometimes give the false result. So better to measure the serum osmolality. If this method is not available, if not possible, then you can go through the blood gas analyzer, and that will give the true serum sodium level. So the serum sodium level which will get in the ABG is more correct compared to the serum sodium which will get from the lab, because in the lab we are the in lab the method which they are using, that is the flame photometry based. Now coming to that the patient have the hyponatremia, then how the brain will adapt with this hyponatremia. So what will the immediate effect? Because of the hyponatremia there is intracellular swelling because of the movement of the foot, movement of the fluid from the extracellular compartment, and there is brain swelling, and that lead to the raised ICP, and the patient has the hyponatremia are the mainly clinical sign and symptoms of the raised ICP. So rapid adaptation occurs initially, and that rapid adaptation is because of the loss of sodium, potassium and chloride, and then after that slow adaptation occurs, and it is due to the loss of organic osmolytes. So this is a normal brain, and when there is hyponatremia there is immediate effect, that is leads to the water gain, intracellular swelling, and then features of the raised ICP. Then rapid adaptation occurs because of the loss of sodium, potassium and chloride. Then slow adaptations occurs because of the loss of the organic osmolytes. If we give the improper therapy here, rapid correction, then that lead to the osmotic demyelination syndrome. So what is the osmotic demyelination syndrome? It is a central nervous system disorder caused by the rapid change in the serum osmolality resulting in the neural damage. And because of that breakdown of the blood-brain barrier, exposure of the glial cell to the cytokine, axonal shear injury occurs, cellular ATP depletion, and finally that leads to the induction of the apoptosis. And all these patients, all this pathophysiology occurs in the osmotic demyelination syndrome. Who are the high risk patients? If the patient is a case of the alcohol abuse, patient has the concomitant hypokalemia, patient has the liver disease, patient has the patient is on the diuretics, and the malnutrition patient. But another term is that is the very important you have to understand, that is the reset osmostate. What is that? There is change in the set point as well as in the slope of the osmoregulation curve. And here vasopressin is released at a lower than the normal serum osmolality threshold. That is very important. Even the patient has the lower than the normal serum osmolality, vasopressin will release, and this causes the increased water conservation by the kidney leading to the lower serum osmolality and hyponatremia. The hyponatremia in the reset osmostate is often mild but on patient frequently asymptomatic, and it mainly seen in case of the pregnancy, tuberculosis or malnutrition patients. Now coming to the some clinical definition related to the hyponatremia. There are a lot of definition based on the biochemical severity. If the patient has mild hyponatremia, in the lab parameters, lab serum sodium would be the in between the 130 to 135, in moderate 125 to 129, and in profound less than 125. Based on the time of development, though hyponatremia will divide into the acute hyponatremia or chronic hyponatremia. So the chronic hyponatremia, acute hyponatremia if it is less than 48 hours, or chronic if it is more than 48 hours. Then another definition on the basis of the symptoms, and the basis symptom, patient the moderately symptomatic or severely symptomatic. So what are the clinical signs and symptoms of the moderately? In case of the moderately symptomatic, patient has the nausea without vomiting, confusion and headache. And the severe symptomatic, patient has the vomiting, cardiorespiratory distress can occur, abnormal or deep somnolence, seizure and the coma with the GCS of less than equal to 8. The another definition on the basis of serum osmolality, that is the effective serum plasma osmolality, that is 2 into sodium plus glucose divided by 18. So on the basis of this, hypotonic hyponatremia, isotonic hyponatremia or hypertonic hyponatremia. This hypotonic hyponatremia is the most common cause of the hyponatremia. Isotonic or pseudo hyponatremia, as I already discussed in the previous slide, in case of the hyperlipidemia or hyperproteinemia, or hypertonic hyponatremia mainly because of translocational hyponatremia we will see in the high glucose level, like in case of the DK or uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, mannitol and the glycine. So corrected serum sodium is equal to the measured serum sodium plus 2.4 into the glucose minus 100 divided by 100 milligram per deciliter. In case of the hypertonic hyponatremia, we have to correct the serum sodium. Add 2.4 millimole per liter to measure serum sodium concentration. For every 100 milligram per deciliter incremental rise of serum glucose, above a standard serum glucose concentration of 100 milligram per deciliter. Okay. Now, at first we will discuss about the hypotonic hyponatremia. So based on the volume status, in case of the hypotonic hyponatremia, it may be the hypovolemic, euvolemic or hypervolemic. Hypovolemic further divided into the further three subdivision. The non-renal loss mainly occurs through the GIT, renal loss or third space loss. So non-renal loss is GIT loss or the transdermal loss. In case of the renal loss, because of the diuretics or primary adrenal insufficiency, or in case of the cerebral short bursting syndrome. Third space loss, like if the patient has the bowel obstruction, if the patient has the pancreatitis, or in case of the sepsis. Now coming to the euvolemic condition. Euvolemic, hypotonic, euvolemic, hypotonic and hyponatremia mainly occurs in case of the SIADH, psychogenic polydipsia, anorexia nervosa and the beer protonemia. Now next one is the hypervolemic, hypotonic and hyponatremia. It mainly seen in case of the advanced renal failure, heart failure, liver failure and nephrotic syndrome. All these conditions where because of this, where secondary hyperaldosteronism occur, and because of the secondary hyperaldosteronism there is retention of water as well as the sodium, and that lead to the dilutional hyponatremia. So patient has the hypovolemic condition. Now coming to a case, 60-year-old male patient admitted to the emergency department. The GCS at that time was 11, heart rate is 120 beats per minute, main arterial pressure is 100 mm of Hg. Patient is spontaneous breathing with the patent airway. Patient has the past history of the carcinoma of tonsil. Patient is a case of hypertension on the losartan and thiazides as well as the NSAIDs. The ABG of that patient, PO2 was the 59, pH was 7.57, PCO2 is 26 and base excess is 1.3. The blood glucose of that patient is 136 milligram per deciliter, serum sodium is 90 and serum potassium is 3.5 and brain CT showing the no bleeding. Now, patient was treated in the emergency with 0.9% NaCl started and transferred to the ICU. After 6 hours, serum sodium was 95 millimole per liter. Patient is now more awake but delirious, so continue with the 0.9% NaCl. After 12 hours, serum sodium is 105 millimole per liter. Patient is awake but confused, so phenobarbital and haloperidol are given. After 24 hours, serum sodium was 115 millimole per liter and patient was intubated due to the respiratory distress. The provisional diagnosis kept was SIDH, but serum sodium rises progressively. On day 6, patient has the quadriplegia, coma, GCS is 3 without sedation. Neurology reference has taken a diagnosis of osmotic demyelination syndrome had met. Over the next 2 days, serum sodium was 150 mole and he dies from the cardiac arrest. So what are the common mistake they did here? At first, the serum sodium here was the 95, even that they had started 0.9% NaCl solution. Only one diagnosis they kept in mind, that is the SIDS. We have to explore the other diagnosis as well. The third one is the serum sodium in the rising trend, and we are ignoring that. That will the major problem they did, and no diagnostic approach to identify the cause of hyponatremia. So how will you approach such hyponatremic patients? So if the patient has hyponatremia, the first question is it real? Calculate the effective osmolality. Exclude the hyperglycemia and other causes of non-hypotonic hyponatremia. After exclusion, it means patient has the hypotonic hyponatremia. Then see the symptoms. Is the patient has the severe symptoms? Yes. If yes, then acute correction is required with the 3% NAS, whether hyponatremia is acute or chronic. And management on the basis of airway, breathing, circulation, disability to prevent the secondary brain injury. That is the most important thing we have to do. If the patient has no severe symptoms, then the next question is water handling is appropriate? Look at the urine osmolality of the patient. The urine osmolality, how will you calculate? We can calculate the last 2 digits of the specific gravity and multiply with the 35. If it is less than or equal to 100 milliosmoles per kg, then consider patient might have the primary polydipsia, low solid intake or beer protomania. Now, if the urine osmolality is more than 100 milliosmoles per kg, then see the urine sodium concentration. See the urine sodium concentration. And the compensatory mechanism, if exists, it means kidney is functional, then it will retain the serum sodium. It means here the urine sodium is less than or equal to 30 millimole per liter. If the low effective arterial blood volume, if ECF expanded, consider the patient has the heart failure, liver cirrhosis or nephrotic syndrome. So if the urine serum sodium concentration is less than or equal to 30 millimole per liter, patient has the low effective arterial blood volume, ECF is expanded, then you can consider the patient has the heart failure, liver cirrhosis and nephrotic syndrome. And if ECF is reduced, then you can consider the patient has a diarrhea, vomiting or third phase loss. The next one, if there is kidney is not functional, compensatory mechanism does not exist, in that condition this urine sodium level would be the more than 30 millimole per liter. Then you can make the differential diagnosis of diuretics or patient have the kidney disease. If something preventing the diuresis, in that condition again the serum sodium will be more than 30 millimole per liter. And again see the ECF. If the ECF is normal, then patient, that is euphobic condition, it means it is a case of the SIDH. And if the ECF is reduced, it means it is a case of the cerebral salt wasting syndrome. Now, how will you manage? The first hour management, regardless whether this patient has the acute hyponatremia or the chronic hyponatremia, the first hour management will be the same both in the acute and chronic condition of hyponatremia. If the patient has the severe symptoms, the first hour management will remain same. So, give the 3% NS 150 ml over 20 minutes or 2 ml per kg and manage the airway, breathing, circulation and disability is neurological condition. Now check for the serum sodium level after 20 minutes and look for the symptoms. If serum sodium level is not rise by 5 millimole per liter or symptom still persists, then repeat the another dose and you can go up to the 3 dose. Your target would be until the serum sodium increase by 5 millimole per liter or until the symptoms improve, whichever comes first. If you achieved your target, then follow-up management would be stop 3% serum sodium, stop 3% NS, keep line patent with 0.9% NS and explore the diagnosis. Limits, what will be the limits of your management? Rise of serum sodium by 10 millimole per liter in the first 24 hours. Therefore, thereafter additional increment of 8 millimole per liter every 20 hours till the serum sodium reaches up to the 130 millimole per liter. It means first 24 hour you can go up to the 10 and after that every 24 hour you can go the increment of 8 only. Till that serum sodium will rise up to the 130 millimole per liter. Now, if the target achieved, serum sodium rise by 5 millimole per liter but symptoms still persist, then continue with the 3% NS with the additional increment at the rate of 1 millimole per liter.
stop immediately if the symptoms improved, and monitor serum sodium by every 4 hourly till 3% NS is going on. And here again the limit is same like above. And always remember, correct hypokalemia. It is very important, because if you don't correct the hyponatremia, then the chances of osmotic demyelination syndrome is more. If a hyponatremic patient presented with the hypokalemia, in that condition you have to collect the hypokalemia first. If there is no severe symptoms, it means patient has the moderately severe symptoms. Then how will you approach? If the moderately severe symptoms, the recommendation is cause specific treatment. Suggestion, just single IV bolus 150 ml or 2 ml per kg. Limits is the same like before. Now if the patient has the no moderately severe symptoms, even patient has the acute hyponatremia less than 48 hour duration, but patient has the no severe symptom as well as no moderate severe symptoms. So acute hyponatremia without severe or moderate severe symptoms, in that condition the recommendation is start prompt diagnostic assessment, cause specific treatment, and the suggestions, these are the recommendations and suggestions are: if acute decrease in serum sodium exceeds 10 millimole per liter, give the 3% NS 150 ml over 30 minutes, and if possible stop fluids, medication and other factors. If there is no acute hyponatremia, it means patient has a chronic hyponatremia without severe or moderate to severe symptoms. In that condition, the general management would be stop non-essential fluid, medication, other factors. Treat cause specific. If the patient has the mild symptoms, against the treatment. If the patient has the moderate to profound hyponatremia, treat but avoid an increase of serum sodium by more than 10 millimole during the first 24 hours, 8 millimole per liter every 24 hours thereafter. Check serum sodium every 6 hourly. In case of the unresolved hyponatremia, reconsider the diagnostic algorithm. Now, in case of the chronic hyponatremia, patient has the no severe or moderate severe symptoms, but patient has the reduced circulatory volume. If yes, patient has the reduced circulatory volume, then restore ESF volume with the IV infusion of normal saline or balanced crystalloid solution at the rate of 0.5 to 1 millimole per kg per hour. In case of the hemodynamic instability, you can give the rapid fluid resuscitation. If there is no reduced circulatory volume, then expand the ECF. Then, if there is no if the patient has no reduced circulating volume, but patient has the expanded ECF, then recommendation is against the treatment for the mild to moderate, against the vasopressin receptor antagonist, against the demiclocycline, and suggestion just restrict the fluid. If the patient has no expanded ECF, then that is the SIADH, and the treatment for the SIADH recommendation is against the lithium or demiclocycline or vasopressin antagonist. Suggestion would be the restrict fluid intake, increase solute intake by 0.25 to 0.5 gram per kg per day of urea, or combination of low dose loop diuretics or oral NaCl in case of the SIADH. Now, this is the very important equation, Ardrugo-Medias equation. That how will you calculate? Change in serum sodium is equal to infused sodium minus serum sodium divided by total body water plus 1. The estimated total body water is calculated as a fraction of body water, and the fraction is 0.6 in the non-elderly men, 0.5 in the non-elderly women, and 0.5 and 0.5 or 0.5 and 0.45 in the elderly men and women respectively. So see this, let's see with example. So an attended 70 kg man presented with a serum sodium of 110 millicurie per liter. His clinician concluded that serum sodium needs to be increased by 4 millicurie per liter in 2 hours using 3% NS hypertonic saline. Expected change in serum sodium per liter of 3% NS by using that formula is 9.37 millicurie per liter. So amount of fluid required to achieve desired change is 4 divided by 9.37, that is the 400 ml. So rate of infusion would be the 200 ml per hour.
Now let's discuss about the hyponatremia. So hyponatremia is defined as when serum sodium level is more than 145 millimole per liter, and hyperosmolar condition caused by a decrease in total body water relative to the serum sodium content, and hyponatremia is almost always the result of a relative water deficit. So three primary mechanism: decreased water intake, increased free water loss, or excessive gain of hypertonic fluid. So classification: hypovolemic, euvolemic, or hypervolemic. The causes of hypovolemic hypernatremia is external loss like diarrhea, vomiting, fistula, or burn; renal loss in case of the osmotic diuresis like hyperglycemic condition, post-obstructive dialysis, and damaged hypothalamic thirst center. The causes of euvolemic hypernatremia is external loss like hyperventilation, renal loss, that is central DI or nephrogenic DI, and here there is mostly free water loss from the intercellular interstitial space. And then hypervolemic hypernatremia, it is because of the hypertonic saline solution, soda bicarb administration, and the Cushing syndrome or TPN administration. So how will you assess the low volume status? On the basis of clinical sign of dehydration, hemodynamically, on the basis of static or dynamic variable parameters like low CVP, PLR test, passive averaging test, or positive pressure, pulse pressure variation, or stroke volume variation. On the basis of lab parameters. Now coming to the management of hypernatremia. If the patient has hypo or euvolemic hypernatremia, then see the urine osmolality. If it is more than 100 milliosmoles per kg, it means patient has the ADH present, ADH is present. So urine volume is less than 800, see the urine volume. If the urine volume is less than 100 ml per day and decrease water intake or increase insensible loss, so treatment is replace free water to correct no faster than 0.5 millimole per liter per hour unless acutely symptomatic. In that condition, we have to correct the 1 to 2 millimole per liter per hour. If the urine volume is more than 1000 ml per day, then cause is the osmotic diuresis, and treatment address the underlying cause and replace with the free water. Now, if the urine osmolality is less than 800 milliosmol per kg, it means in this patient the ADH either absent or ineffective. Give the vasopressin. If respond, yes, central DI. Treatment this is DDAVP at 10 to 14 mics intranasal TDS in divided dose, or 1 to 2 mics subcutaneous IV BD. If not responded with the vasopressin, it means patient has a nephrogenic DI, and treatment it would be the addressing underlying cause. If the patient has hypervolemic hypernatremia, then treatment stop saline infusion, give the diuretics, consider free water administration. Now let's see this with example. An 70 kg man present with lassitude and a serum sodium of 160 millimole per liter. He is having 2 liter loss because of the diarrhea and 1 liter of urine output each day. The replacement fluid is chosen is 5% dextrose in water. So at first we have to correct the free water deficit by this formula: total body water into serum sodium divided by 140 minus 1, and it becomes 6 liter. So for change of 20 millimole per liter requires 6 liter. So for 12 it would be 3.6 liter. Ongoing loss is 2.1, 2 plus 1, that is 3 liter. So in 24 hours total 6.6 liter fluid we have to give at the rate of 275 millimole 275 ml per hour. So take home message of my presentation is hyponatremia is a common life-threatening problem. Stepwise evaluation is very important to manage the hyponatremia, and if you manage hyponatremia inappropriately, it will worsen the disease. Thank you so much. If you have any question, you can answer, and I will be very happy to answer all those queries. Thank you so much.